Now, when they found that ancient Greek computer thing, what is that called?
The Antikythera mechanism.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, that testifies to a lost navigational skill. It tracks the movements of the planets. It's a navigational device. It's a geared, cogged system. Great interest to me, but I'm thinking around about 500 BC.
So, at least 2,000 years old, 2,000 plus, and we know that there had to be more than one of these things.
For more than a century, one object has quietly unsettled historians, engineers, and astronomers alike. Recovered from a shipwreck off a small Greek island, it appeared at first to be nothing more than a corroded mass of bronze and wood. Yet hidden inside that lump was a machine so advanced that it forced scholars to reconsider what ancient civilizations were capable of achieving. That object is known today as the Antikythera mechanism. When it was discovered in 1901 by Greek sponge divers working off the island of Antikythera, no one recognized its significance. The wreck itself dated to the 1st century BCE and contained statues, glassware, and coins, valuable but expected. The mechanism sat unnoticed in a museum storeroom until a scholar spotted a gear tooth protruding from the corrosion. That single observation opened one of the deepest mysteries in the history of science. What researchers eventually realized was staggering. The Antikythera mechanism was not decorative, ritualistic, or symbolic. It was functional. It was an analog computer built more than 2,000 years ago, designed to calculate astronomical events with extraordinary precision. The surviving fragments, 82 in total, represent only about 1/3 of the original device. Even so, they preserve at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, some with more than 200 carefully cut teeth. The largest gear spans just over 5 inches, yet its tolerances rival those of early modern clockwork. Nothing like it would appear again for nearly 2 millennia. For decades, scholars could only guess at what the missing portions once did. The rear of the mechanism was the first to give up its secrets. Using X-ray imaging and later computed tomography, researchers discovered spiral dials engraved with text. These inscriptions described cycles that matched known astronomical periods. The 19-year Metonic cycle that aligns lunar months with solar years. The 76-year Callippic cycle that refines long-term accuracy. And the 223-month Saros cycle used to predict eclipses. This alone would have been remarkable, but the inscriptions went further. They included symbols indicating whether an eclipse would be solar or lunar, notes on the time of day it would occur, and even guidance on visibility from Greece. In effect, the mechanism functioned as a predictive model of the heavens, allowing a user to turn a crank and see future celestial events unfold mechanically. What remained unknown was the front, the entire face of the machine. The part a user would look at while operating it was mostly gone. Only fragments of the cover plates survived, their inscriptions partially preserved. For years, historians debated what the front might have displayed. Some believed it showed only the sun and moon. Others argued it included the known planets. The evidence was suggestive but incomplete. That changed in the last decade. High-resolution imaging revealed that the front cover inscriptions were not vague descriptions, but precise mathematical statements. They listed exact numerical relationships for Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. How many years corresponded to specific numbers of synodic cycles and revolutions through the zodiac? These were not philosophical musings. They were engineering constraints. Any reconstruction of the missing front had to satisfy those ratios exactly. At the same time, advances in artificial intelligence began to play a critical role. A system developed to restore damaged ancient Greek texts was trained on thousands of inscriptions. When applied to the Antikythera fragments, it could predict missing letters with significant accuracy. More importantly, When used alongside human scholars, it dramatically improved confidence in contested readings. Each restored letter narrowed the range of possible designs. Researchers were no longer guessing what the front might have shown. They were reconstructing what it must have shown. The breakthrough came when engineers treated the mechanism not as an archaeological puzzle, but as a machine constrained by physics, space, and geometry. The surviving bronze frame preserved the exact distances between plates, the thickness of gear stacks, and the positions of support pillars. Any viable reconstruction had to fit inside those limits without gears colliding or shafts interfering. In 2021, a team of engineers and classicists presented the first fully constrained model of the missing front half. It was not a speculative drawing, it was a complete mechanical architecture that fit within the surviving frame, reproduced the exact astronomical cycles named in the inscriptions, and could, in principle, operate. At the heart of the design was a central coaxial system, a bundle of nested tubes running through the center of the mechanism, each carrying motion to a different display. Around this hub, epicyclic gear trains, gears mounted on rotating arms, modeled the irregular motion of the planets as seen from Earth. Pin and slot mechanisms reproduced changes in planetary speed that ancient Greek astronomers had carefully documented. The layout was elegant and economical. Gears were shared across multiple planetary systems to conserve space. The Sun's motion fed directly into other calculations. The Moon's phase was shown by a small rotating sphere, half black and half white, driven by the relative positions of the Sun and Moon. When the handle was turned, the entire cosmos moved. On the face of the mechanism, concentric rings displayed the zodiac, the calendar date, and the positions of the Moon and 5 planets. Small markers indicated key events: oppositions, conjunctions, greatest elongations, and stations where a planet appeared to pause and reverse direction. A serpent-like pointer, known as the dragon, tracked the lunar nodes, signaling eclipse seasons when eclipses were possible. This was not a toy. It was not an educational model in the modern sense. It was a working cosmological engine. Later simulations tested whether such a system could function in practice. Engineers modeled gear friction, manufacturing tolerances, and long-term wear. The conclusion was sobering. The mechanism would only work if its builders could cut gears with remarkable precision and maintain tight spacing throughout the device. Small errors would cause jamming over time. In other words, the Greeks who built it were not experimenting. They knew exactly what they were doing. The implications are difficult to overstate. The Antikythera mechanism demonstrates that ancient Greek scientists and engineers possessed not only advanced astronomical knowledge, but the mechanical skill to embody that knowledge in complex machines. This was centuries before medieval clocks, long before the scientific revolution, and far outside the accepted timeline of technological development. It also raises an uncomfortable question. If such a machine existed in the 1st century BCE, where are the others? The most plausible answer is loss. Bronze was valuable and routinely recycled. Precision instruments would have been rare, expensive, and easily destroyed by time, war, or neglect. The Antikythera mechanism survived only because it sank, was sealed from oxygen, and lay undisturbed for 2,000 years. What artificial intelligence has done is not to invent a new story, but to complete one that was already written in bronze. By restoring inscriptions, constraining designs, and testing mechanical feasibility, It has allowed historians to see the mechanism as its makers intended. Not as a curiosity, but as a window into a level of ancient scientific sophistication that history had forgotten. The Antikythera mechanism no longer stands as an isolated anomaly. It stands as evidence that the ancient world understood the heavens with a clarity, precision, and mechanical ingenuity that would not be matched again until the early modern era. It stands as evidence that the ancient world understood the heavens with a clarity, precision, and mechanical ingenuity that would not be matched again until the early modern era. And that realization continues to change how history itself is calculated. And that realization continues to change how history itself is calculated.